9th of August 2023. This is one of that Warrafak moments, and this is one that is most probably going to get a lot of guys very excited again. Earlier I spent some time and went through the comments on the videos, and I must say I'm sorry for those guys that I cannot, there's no way in the world that I can respond and reply to all the comments. I cannot do it. There is, just after release of the video, I've got about 2 or 3 hours wherein I can respond to some of the remarks, and that's it. And I cannot even read all the comments. I just don't have the time for it. But I want to talk about some of the things that I see in the comments and so forth. The one thing that really disturbs me is to see how many commentators are still under the impression that Russia is communist. And then I had one guy that made the remark that the Russians are Catholics. Now, it is remarks and comments like that that clearly indicates that the commentator is totally clueless of what the hell is actually going on in Russia. And in my Skidmark that I did earlier about that news flash of Russians setting up that, they're setting up that village area. It's not a village alone, it's an area between Moscow and St. Petersburg, where they are planning to make provision for settlements by Afrikaners. And there was some comments there that, I don't know how to respond to it, so I'd rather just stay away. But the fact of the matter is, people are really uninformed. I think, and that's not my personal opinion, that the media ran such a successful Russophobia campaign over many years, since after the fall of the USSR. They started with this shit. And here in South Africa we have a problem, and that is that the media in South Africa is extremely negative towards the Russians. And we didn't ever get real facts about Russia, nothing. Most Afrikaners think that Russia is communists. They are totally unaware of what actually happened in Russia, and specifically under Putin. And they make stupid remarks about the Russians. Now, it is my opinion that if we actually had the true realities of Russia in our newspapers and in our commentators and things like that, that we really understood and knew what the hell is actually going on in Russia, I am convinced that a huge portion of the Afrikaners that went to New Zealand and Australia and Canada would have gone to Russia. And if they did, they would have been far better off than what they are today in those countries that I've just mentioned. I mean, Canada is going to hell in a handbasket. Satanists in charge there. Look at all that gender confusion and what they're doing to the children. Same shit in Australia. There is the Australian people. I always assumed that the average Aussie is very close to what the average Afrikaner is. But after I saw what happened there during the pestilence, I am not so sure. They were overwhelmed quite easily, and they just took it. Even up to today, now that the facts come out, they still take it. I have, and this is going to shock some people, I have always said, our salvation here in South Africa against the New World Order and against all those draconian shit that they tried to push onto communities, the black community in South Africa will protect us against that, because the average black is not a communist. The average black is actually a very independent capitalist, and they're not going to get right. When they start trying, if they try to take money away out of our society, fuck, this country will be burned down to ashes. They try that shit here. And if they come again with another round of pestilence shit, they're going to come short. That kite's not going to fly. Our problem is that cabal, and I've seen so many documents the past 10 days about how deep that Stellenbosch mafia is into our lives. I mean, they've got tentacles into everything, which makes me very nervous. And that brings me to the topic of this Warrafak moment, tribes. Our only chance of getting out of the grip of XXX is by sticking to our tribes. And I must understand, and this I want to do, because there's also some confusion about that. Nation, the Zulu nation for instance, consists of a few tribes, many tribes. That's why there's a tribal council in the Zulus culture. There's different tribes in the Zulu nation. Same in the Afrikaner nation, there's different tribes. And to say that whites, Malema wants to kill all the whites. Well, fuck. I'm part of whites. But that's it. I'm part of the white. I am white. I cannot deny that. I'm white. But my tribe is the Afrikaner Boer tribe. That's my tribe. And in my tribe, the Afrikaner is actually a nation. The Afrikaner is a nation. But there's many tribes in it. And we have got, and you know, the reality is, in tribes there are factions. And if you go and you look at the history of Zululand, you'll see that during the 70s and the 80s there was a lot of faction fights there. Still all Zulus, many of them same tribe, but factions. So you've got a nation, and then you've got the tribes, and then you've got the factions. And for me to try and explain how all those things go together will be impossible, because myself, I don't have a fucking clue exactly what the hell is going on among the whites. I mean, people come and tell me I'm not an Afrikaner, then the other guys come and tell me I'm not a Boer, and then they come and they say, I don't know fucking what's going on. For me, if you are basically committed to the culture of the Afrikaners, that makes you an Afrikaner. You're white and you're committed to that. And it's got nothing to do with fucking language. There's very good English-speaking Afrikaners. Don't deny that. And I don't talk about Afrikaans people, talk Afrikaners, talking Boere. The Boere is a tribe in the Afrikaner nation. But then in that Boer tribe, there are factions that are extremely conservative, and there are factions that are more liberal. But they're still in the same tribe. Now, what you must understand, this SASSA generation has been purposefully bred to be tribeless. That was the main mission of that thing. Just as the Kalergi Plan that was published in 1924 said that European women must be impregnated by black men so that there is a colored community there, because the hook-nosers can control the coloreds better than they can control the whites. The same shit is happening here in South Africa. That same thing. But they couldn't get the mixed thing going because the numbers are out. So they focused on breeding these tribeless generation, this tribeless generation. Those youngsters are disconnected from their culture. They're totally disconnected from their culture. Look at them. They are disconnected from their culture. They do not even know to what tribe they belong, because most of them don't even know who their fathers are. And that is a weapon that was bred. And you can see them now in action. Look at that stuff in the Cape.
Do you know what's crazy, right? Is the fact that with the whole taxi strike in Cape Town, one of the arguments that the taxi drivers and owners were making was that this thing is a race issue. It's about the white man oppressing the black owned taxi drivers. But if you look at what's happening, actually, white people aren't the ones that are being killed. White people aren't the ones whose cars are being vandalized. There's few of them.
And that SASSA generation is fucking dangerous to the black people as well as to the white people. They are dangerous to everybody, you must understand that. And if you see what they do to black people,
But which parts of Cape Town are burning? Khayelitsha, Gugulethu, Philippi, Nyanga, Mitchell's Plain. So one of the arguments is that it's the white man versus the black man. But now it's the black man that's actually shooting in the black communities. It's the black people that are dying. So if it's a race issue, why is it that black taxi owners are oppressing black people in the townships? Why are they keeping us away from our work if this is a white versus black people issue?
it is horrendous. We tend to focus, us, tend to focus on things done to white farmers and white people. But you must understand, the real crime rate, the real murder rate is about 70 people per day in South Africa on average. And in a week, there's maybe 4 or 5 whites killed. And then the people make a big story of the way the whites... I mean, I have been informed of horrific shit that is happening in the black communities. This SASSA brigade is absolutely monstrous. I mean, they kill their old people for the person's pension money or for the food that he just bought for the month. They kill their grannies, they kill them. What is worse, they rape them. So this SASSA brigade is fucking dangerous to everybody in South Africa. And your biggest problem is, if you go to the more conservative, say the more conservative Zulus, and I'm referring to the Zulus because I've got a fair knowledge of the Zulu nation. And I grew up and spent a lot of my youth on the Natal Highlands. So, if somebody steps out of line in a community in Zululand, the tribal leaders will be the first to be on his case. And if they don't come right with him, they'll take him up higher in their hierarchy they've got there. But the fact is that that person is under the influence and control of the tribal leaders. But this SASSA brigade has got no connection to their tribe. They don't know, most of them don't even know where their tribe is, who their tribe is. They are totally tribeless, completely disconnected from their culture. That is the big problem. They are disconnected from their culture. In general, the traditional black people in South Africa, they also abide by the concept of Ubuntu. Now, the concept of Ubuntu has been adopted by the Afrikaner Boere many generations back already, because it makes sense and it fits in with our Christian belief. But these youngsters don't have a clue what it means. That is why you will see they will kill a black granny to steal her pension money, or to steal her TV, or to steal her radio, or steal her groceries, and on top of it they'll rape her. Now, let me tell you this. 50 years ago, that's not a long time ago, 50 years ago, in Zululand, if a youngster would have assaulted a granny, that guy would wish he wasn't born, because the tribal leaders will sort him out, and sort him out violently so. Chances of him coming out alive is very slim. 50 years ago, not 150 years ago, 50 years ago. Shit like that would not have been tolerated in the communities at all. Today, that is a natural thing. It happens, and these youngsters, they don't even have remorse about it. Many years ago, in the late 90s, there was a black security operation. And I just want to get the name right, and it was Mapogo Amatamaga. And here in my area, in the Onderberg area, they were extremely efficient. And then up here to Groblersdal, Marble Hall area, they were very efficient. Because they handled criminals along tribal disciplinary traditions. And they were super efficient. But then, for some reason, the police all of a sudden started making life difficult for Mapogo. And it was for me it was such a shock. But now today, having more information and understanding how that criminal cabal sitting at the top of the ANC is controlled and financed by XXX, it makes sense. The police were instructed to get rid of Mapogo because they were too efficient and too successful. And it was a tragedy. But that Mapogo incident is another reason why you must really make sure that you know who your tribe is. The only way humankind in the West will be able to get out of the grips of XXX is not by voting for politicians. You can fucking forget that fucking dream. The politicians are so tarnished and so infected by XXX. You cannot trust a single one of them. Not one. Somebody asked me in the comments, who will I vote for? And I said, well, for me, at this point in time, I will vote. But I am waiting and hoping that the independent candidate will rise up. Because I cannot support any of the political parties. Not one of them. They are all tarnished. They are all working for the same bosses. So, the only way we can get out, and this is for the Europeans, they're going to go the same way, the Americans also, but they don't understand it yet. But that's where it's going. The tribes has the power to break the power of XXX. Because if the tribal council decides in our area, this and this and this and this is not going to be tolerated and will be dealt with, XXX can do nothing about it. What are they going to try and do? Bring the police into your tribal area? And what about your tribal chiefs? How's the tribal chiefs going to take that? And now you must understand, there's a big problem in South Africa with some of these traditional leaders. A hell of a lot of them have been severely corrupted by the ANC on instruction from XXX. So you must be careful there. Those so-called traditional leaders, there's a problem there. You must go lower to your tribe. That is where the pressure will come from. The tribes. It's the tribes that will be able to take our lives back. And if I say tribes, I mean, I'm from my tribe. But the Zulu guy is from his tribe. We don't have a problem with one another. But we've got a more of a fucking problem with these guys at the top. And that is where it is. So, if you're an English-speaking guy, but you associate yourself with the cultural values of the Afrikaner tribe, that makes you an Afrikaner. Because it's, in the end, Victor Orban said it the best, it is not about race, it's about culture. People with a shared culture, values, they tend to stand together. And I want to remind the Afrikaners here that it's got a lot of stories about me writing a letter to Putin and all of that. And by the way, I've got very good feedback, fairly reliable feedback, that that letter has been translated and is in the Kremlin. So, what will happen? I don't know what will happen. Fact of the matter is, we are being manipulated to be in conflict all the time. Because while this conflict is going on, the Triple X is having it all their way. Now, the violence in the Cape is a fuck-up. But that is orchestrated. And there's a few questions you have to ask yourself about that violence there. But it's not in here. The fact of the matter is, I can see that the colored people are beginning to get very upset because it is not they that are burning the Cape. It is those young SASSA Brigade.
Guys, wat baie hartseer is wat nou gebeur is. Ons Kaap, ons Weskaap word nou oorgevat en word nou verneder deur mense wat nie behoort nie. So ek kan my sê wat jy wil. As al seker 5% coloureds betrokke is. Maar die meerderheid is die swartes. Wie brand die Golden Aerobuste? Wie brand die skole? Wie brand die trokke wat op die paaie ry? In ons Weskaap.
That are doing it. So the colored community is now also bearing the brunt of that SASSA Brigade. So we've got a major problem. And the only way the SASSA Brigade can be handled is by the tribes sticking together and telling them to fuck off or pay the price. Because you must understand, they are tribeless. They don't know to what tribe they belong. But it doesn't even matter, because they've got no respect for any of that. They don't even have self-respect. If a guy in that SASSA Brigade has got self-respect, he would not kill a granny and rape her. He will only do that if he's a drone with no culture, no self-respect. And that is this destruction that you see. I saw someone blew a gasket because I referred to it as barbaric actions, and then he tries to be clever with bringing dictionary cuck about barbarians. Fact of the matter is, I'm not going to call them barbarians. They are actually escapees from the Stone Age, and they missed all the civilization steps, and now they find themselves among civilized people, and they don't know how to handle themselves because they cannot function in a society. They can only function when they run in a pack, like a lot of wild dogs hunting. They hunt in a pack. But once the hunt is over, those wild dogs, they fight a lot among one another. Go and check it. That's how it works. And that is that SASSA Brigade. Because they are tribeless. Because if they were tied and had connections and cultural connections to their tribe, their old Indunas would have told them, hey, you don't do things like that, you don't do things like that. But more important, they would listen to the Indunas. The problem today is that SASSA Brigade. There's not a single man that can stand up and say he can control it. There was one guy that could handle these youngsters, and that was the reason why he was taken out by the dark forces. And that was Chris Hani. He didn't take a moment's shit from these youngsters. That is something that you must think about. Zuma doesn't take shit from these youngsters. Why? Because Zuma is a tribalist and he understands the Zulu culture and he respects the Zulu culture. But you know what happened to him. So, you must understand something. If you are not connected to your tribe, you're on your own. And you have to sort that out if you want to survive. Because it is the tribes that will survive. That is it. The tribes will survive. You must make sure that you understand that. The onslaught is against all of us. Black, white, colored, Indians. And if you want to survive, you will have to find your tribe. And I spoke to another guy earlier today. He knows the history fairly well, much better than me. And he explained to me how the different Zulu tribes and the different Boer communities work together through the years, through generations. And it is a fact that Southern Africa is actually a feudal historical playground. There was a hell of a lot of tribal wars and a hell of a lot of faction fights going on in this country. Massive stuff. And if you talk to the more conservative traditionalists, you will start hearing that there are historical issues that they want resolved. Things that were not resolved. And they want it resolved. So, we are sitting in a situation where the Triple X is fueling the racism fires for their own benefit, to their own advantage. But in the meantime, we are at one another's throats, while they're sitting there, just keeping score. And when they see things cool down here, they start something. They give a bit of heat. I am of the opinion that this taxi thing in the Cape was well planned and well orchestrated. And if you listen to what that Minister of Transport, you listen to her shit this afternoon, and I watched that video. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then there's many guys that made comments, and I've seen it. They are questioning her origins. They say she's not a South African. It's not me that's saying. There's black people that tell me. Black people tell me that minister is not a South African. Me? I won't be surprised. I've seen it here. Officials, Malawians, Zimbabweans, and their officials in the government service. But that's your blacks' problem. I don't have a government. I don't have a leadership in this government. I don't have any representation in the government. I've got, this government is actually supporting Malema's kill the Boer, kill the farmer thing. So, here I am. The government that is my government is happy that Malema promotes genocide. But I've seen a lot of things just like this afternoon and so forth. This government is in for a fucking surprise. The rest of the world is not on board with this shit. And this is becoming an embarrassment now for BRICS, because a prominent BRICS member is officially promoting genocide. How is that going to sit with the rest of the other BRICS members? But we've got these guys, these IQ 70 cruisers that they are in charge and they think they've got everything under control. They don't have the intelligence to understand that preaching genocide is going to create issues in the BRICS bloc. So, think about the things that I've said. And, as usual, give your comments. If I don't answer, there's normally other people, and I see there's some debates going on in the... And on that, I'm going to stop. This is getting too long. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. And thank you for your support.